Okay, so now since everyone has calmed down from the Austrian Grand Prix, sort of, I think it's time we take a fair, unbiased look at what happened this weekend. So to start off, we did have some positive moments, George Russell not making a fucky-wucky and winning a race for once, and Ollie Bearman winning a race in F2 and proving all of his haters wrong that I guess have a 3-month memory span. But ultimately, what you chronically online people are looking for is a response to the Maximus Verstappen and the Lando Norris crash. So coming into Sunday with Max on pole and Lando in second, it seemed like we were gonna have a close fight. But as the race began, Max pulled away, like I guess we came back to 2023 again, 2022. So after trying multiple times to overtake very much unsuccessfully, on lap 59, Lando decided to imitate danica and just torpedo his way up the inside, which it didn't work out for him. But apparently Max took the turn 3 invasions by Lando very much personally, because on lap 64, Lando decided to dive up the outside, and instead of moving over when Max moved over, he just stayed there, and thus a collision occurred, dropping Lando out of the race because of the damage sustained and Max down to 5th, which, by the way, despite getting a 10-second penalty and a puncture and an extra pit stop, he still beat his teammate by 17 seconds, so I'm not quite sure what's going on there, but, greatest heist in the history of racing, getting a 2-year contract at the top team. But speaking of crashing, that's not the only thing that happened this race. Let's not forget Chuck Leclerc. On lap 1, decided to do his best Nikita Mazepin impression and took himself out of contention immediately. So George Russell won a race, with Oscar Piastri in second and Carlos Sainz getting third, which, made some people happy, and I was okay with it up until I heard Russell's radio after the race, where he decided to say yabba dabba doo. Yabba dabba doo! I guess he thinks he's Fred Flintstone now, which, I guess to be fair, Fred Flintstone in 6 seasons of the Flintstones had 1 car accident. George typically does that in FP1. So the deep meaning behind this is that George Russell is now going to win every single race this year because he's now Fred Flintstone, I think. Oh yeah, real quick also, Nico Hülkenberg somehow got 6th place in a Haas with his teammate Magnussen in 8th. Sandwiching Sergio Perez in 7th. And to close off the Formula 1 section of Austria, I would like to thank F1 for actually doing something interesting. In the media pit after the race, they decided to stick Max Verstappen and Lando Norris right next to each other getting their interviews, which, that was a great idea. I don't see a problem with that at all. So, after this, what is the news that's going on? Ollie Bearman is set to sign with Haas at his home race in Silverstone for the 2025 Formula 1 season, which seems about inevitable that Bearman and Antonelli will eventually get announced. I just announced them sooner rather than later, I think. And as well, another thing, Danica Patrick was finally fired by Sky Sports for believing in the lizard people. So my proposition here for Sky Sports, I want the next race, I want the Las Vegas Grand Prix. I want Rick Harrison from Pawn Stars and Bobo from Finding Bigfoot to commentate that race. Now, that would be...
Look, the best I could do is maybe a $19 Fortnite card, and I'll even throw in a Travis Scott McNugget meal, alright?
That would be brilliant. So, since F1 couldn't avoid being controversial for one race, how could Formula 2 and Formula 3 do? Well, not much better. So the Formula 2 sprint race was ultimately dominated by Bearman, and not too much happened. We had some good racing, which something you don't see very often in F1, but since the cars are all equal, you see it quite often. Typically they crash into each other, but this time it seemed fair. But of course, the feature race, where it matters most, is where everything went to So to start off with, before the race even began, Dennis Hauger, who was supposed to be fighting for the championship, he was on pole and he stalled the car, along with Operation Freedom Jr. and Kushmini as well. Then the race would eventually get underway, but Zane Maloney would also stall his car because the race just couldn't be normal, I swear. Joshua Dirksen, who inherited pole position from Hauger's brilliant mind there, I get what he was doing completely. He's trying to get a Ferrari seat since he's no longer with Red Bull, so great stuff. But what you F2 fans are ultimately here for is, of course, the Isack Hadjar controversy, because he can't just be normal for 5 freaking minutes. So what happened with him? He was behind his teammate and wanted let through. Now, if you don't know, F2 is not like F1. Your teammate is not actually your teammate. You just happen to be racing for the same team. You're fighting for yourselves. But Pepe Marti was nice enough and let him through. So what does Hadjar do? He complains about his teammate taking too long to let him through and says that he ruined his tires. So basically, when Isack the Terrible wasn't able to actually catch the guy ahead and make any progress when it came to the end of the race, it seemed only fair that his teammate, who was now catching him, should be let back through to get that podium. No. That's not what happened. Isack the Terrible just decided to keep the podium for himself, and yeah, social media didn't appreciate that one. Formula 3 was a lot more straightforward. There wasn't much controversy. It was a pretty good fight in both the sprint race and the actual race. We did get one very wholesome moment in F3 though, when Montoya decided to turn Alex Dunn's car into a freaking lawnmower. So yeah, George Russell is now Fred Flintstone and is going to win the Formula 1 championship. Paul Aaron is underrated, and Formula 3 is fun to watch.